I think it's February 2nd or 3rd. He'll be right there.
It's 6 p.m., so can I call the meeting to order, please? Ooh. I'm calling the meeting to order. Councillor Hickey? Ready? Okay, so I just want to say welcome to January 23rd, 2023. That sounds like it could be good luck. The meeting of St. John City Council. Welcome to the citizens who are joining us this evening. This is just a little bit of a nutshell of what we're going to do. We provide good governance. We set direction for the city and provide oversight, and we do that through strategic planning process and through other major plans that the city has. We recognize important days and we share information. And my job is to ensure that this meeting runs effectively. So before we get started, I just wanted to also say Happy Year of the Rabbit to any of our Chinese citizens. And for the Vietnamese culture, it's the Year of the Cat. So I'm going to read you a little bit of information that the origins date back to at least 2637 BC, the Chinese calendar. The Chinese year is based on the lunar year, which starts in late January or early February. Each of the Chinese years is named after an animal, and there is a legend offering an explanation for this. It describes how one Chinese New Year, the Buddha invited all of the animals in the kingdom to a party. Only 12 showed up. The rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, dragon, snake, horse, goat, monkey, rooster, dog, and pig. In gratitude, the Buddha named a year after each of the animals and said that those born in that year would have some of the personalities of that animal. And another legend offers the explanation for the order of the years. And according to this, the animals had to race across a river, and the order they finished would be the order of the years. The rat, very much an opportunist, and still is today, and determined to win, craftily rode on the back of the ox. And just as the ox reached the riverbank, he leapt off and ran ahead, winning the race. This is said to be why the rat starts the year cycle, and the ox follows. They're followed by the other 10 animals, and the pig, who is known as a great finisher, aptly came in last. So that's the story of the animals, and we'll move on to our next item. Oh, before we do that, I actually want to welcome. We have some new members at this table. We have the CFO, and tonight Craig Levine is filling in for the CFO, so he's at our table this evening. We have Lisa Casey will be with us as well, and she is the head of external operations for us. So you'll see a little bit of a shuffle in the seats here tonight. And we have Rob Nickel here in the place of the chief this evening. So we'll start with a land acknowledgement, and I'm going to hand that over to Councillor Sullivan. Oh,
Thank you, Your Worship. The land on which the city of St. John, or Menaquest, is situated is the traditional territory of the Wolastoqiyik. The Wolastoqiyik, along with their indigenous neighbors, the Mi'kmaq and Pescatomakati, signed peace and friendship treaties with the British Crown in the 1700s that protected their rights to lands and resources. Let us pause and reflect.
Okay, I'll now ask everyone to stand for the national anthem. Okay, City Clerk, next item.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next item on the agenda is item 2.1, approval of minutes for January the 9th.
Approval of minutes for January 9th. Counselor Stewart and Counselor Killen on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next item is approval of the agenda, and there are a few additions that came from Committee of the Whole. So those additions would be 17.1, Rehabitat Inc., Boar's Head Road Development, 17.2, Development Proposal from John Howard Society on Troop Street, 17.3, Information Technology Purchase, and 17.4, Rapid Housing Initiative Due Diligence.
Okay, so I'll need to have approval of the agenda with the, including the added items. Counselor Killen and the deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next item is disclosures of conflict of interest, if there are any.
Seeing none, move on to next item.
Next is the consent agenda.
Deputy, over to you, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, I'd move 5.1 through to 5.7, please.
Okay, I'll take a sec. Counselor Killen is the seconder on that. On the questions, anyone has a question? I'll ask the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next item is members' comments, item 6.
Members' comments on for the 2-minute speed round. I'll check and see who I've got up first here. Any takers? Counselor Sullivan, over to you.
I'll jump into the really important news of the day. The Sullivan family is voting for Froster Thurston for the
Froster?
name
Oh,
Froster
yeah.
Thurston to name one of our plows. And for folks who are listening, you know, the final list is now posted on the city website. So thank you to so many St. Johners who submitted names. There was a hot debate in the House. Also on the finalist list is Kevin, which was the favorite second in the household. I was also a big favorite. My son used to play with him when he was young. But the Courtney Beyblade is also on the list. So I highly recommend you checking it out. And in that vein, actually, not today's storm, but the snow we had last week, just a shout out, and I wish the plow had a name on the side of it because we could have identified them, but I'll call them Mr. Plow for now. Just to the staff who's out there doing the work in the streets. My son who parks on the street and then rushes his car into the driveway to get out of the way of the plows when he hears them coming was a little slow, and the plow driver was good enough to take another sweep to clean out the pile that my son had left behind. So just thanks to the staff who are out there doing the work. And, you know, it is a tough job. And so it's nice to have a little fun with it. So please participate in the naming contest. And certainly just be healthy, St. John. You know, the new world we live in of not just COVID, but all the other respiratory illnesses that are going around, just good health habits. Still wearing your mask when you're comfortable. Certainly be aware if there are people around you wearing masks, cough into your cubital fossa or your elbow pit. Wash your hands and be kind to one another. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. I must check that list and see if Stormella DeVille made it. Okay, Counselor Hickey, over to you.
Thanks, Your Worship. And of course, to Councillor Sullivan's point, huge thank you to our communications team and Lisa, and of course, Nesta and her team at 97.3 for setting all of this up. While I was flattered that a few people used my name in them, they did get a little inappropriate. So thanks to folks for doing that. But I have to go with my favorite being reversing snowfalls. I think that's the most clever out there, and we'll be advocating for that one, as I have voted. This Thursday, January 26th, Big Brothers Big Sisters is hosting their Celebrate Mentoring luncheon, which will host keynote speaker Dr. Sarah Gander, celebrating a bunch of other community mentors as well. There's a list up there of 3 great folks in our community. I'll also mention in our celebrations of the Lunar New Year, Your Worship, just to add that for the Vietnamese community they're celebrating the cat while the rest are celebrating the rabbit. So great addition for one of our largest ethnocultural groups in our community. Also this weekend, I was pleased to attend the John T. McMillan Foundation fundraiser at the Trade and Convention Center. Well hosted by all. It's always a really fun event because it's not your traditional sit down and have a meal event. It was Monopoly themed and it was very cool. It was a lot of fun. So, and I know a few of us attended and it was a great time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Over to the deputy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just an information item. So for those people that are interested in knowing how large the city is now, here we grow. It's official. More people are now calling St. John home. According to the data released by Stats Canada in January, St. John's population has grown by 2.4%, or 1,759 residents, bringing our city's population now to 73,611, and that's as of July 2022, so it's actually higher than that. So just congratulations to our growth committee, our growth team here at the city, and all the people that are making this happen. The city is growing by leaps and bounds. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Radwan.
Thank you, Mayor. I also wanted to say Happy New Year to our Asian community. And I was over at Peru the other day when our Chinese Association was trying to get ready for the big gala that's happening on Sunday at the Imperial Theater at 2:00. There's not a whole lot of tickets left, but you could still get them. And while I was speaking with Li Song, I asked her, how many people have come into St. John from China? Do we know exactly what the population is now? And she said between 5,000 and 6,000. So she wasn't sure exactly the numbers, but I thought that was great, and I know that they certainly are an integral part of our community. I also wanted to say a big congratulations to the Chamber of Commerce, who had an unbelievable blowout event on Thursday. And that was hosted by UNB, which was wonderful, and catered by Tondi's, which was incredible. And I had no time to eat, unfortunately, because there was over 300 people. And the most exciting part about it, it was the most diversified room that I've been in a very long time. And it was a business event. So I was extremely excited, and to see the potential in that room is absolutely incredible. We need to empower these MBA students. There's about 150 MBA students there. It was just unbelievable. And I just wanted to do a big shout out to Daimi Rodriguez Martinez, who has today helped me with a big urgent travel arrangement so that I could be here at council tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Norton?
Thank you, Your Worship. Skip the ditches and Jennifer Snopez. It's kind of the debate in the household right now, so appreciate the conversation in the Sullivan home. So lots of good engagement. And speaking of engagement, if you're looking to get involved even more than naming, I think it's 8 city plows this year. I think last year was 4, but if you're looking to get involved beyond that, then we're looking for some volunteers for agencies, boards, and commissions. And we're only as good as the people that certainly volunteer and commit and are the thought leadership, I guess, behind some of these agencies, boards, and committees. The St. John Shared Risk Pension Plan, Fort Latour Development, Heritage Development, Lord Beaverbrook, Planning Advisory Committee, Pro Kids, Rockwood Park Endowment Fund, St. John Community Arts Board, St. John Energy, St. John Free Public Library, and the St. John Substandard Properties Appeal. All of those respective agencies, boards, and commissions are looking for good people, and I can tell you the caliber of some of the folks that are on there, all of them. We don't take your time or your leadership for granted. It's a great way to get plugged in and look for other ways to become involved and leave your community better than you found it. So thanks for your interest. It's on the dashboard on our City of St. John website if you want to send in an expression of interest. That's all. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. I will also reiterate about the Chinese New Year Gala. It's a fabulous show. It's about 2 hours long, and it's at the Imperial. And as Councillor Radwan said, the tickets are few and far between now because it is pretty spectacular. If you want to know if you're a rabbit, I have my little book here, my little Bible. If you're born in 39, 51, 63, 75, 87, I have a fire rabbit at home, 99, 2011, or as of yesterday in January 22 beyond and on, you are a rabbit. It's a good year for you. Next item, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next on the agenda under business matters is item 12.1, and this is a staff report in relation to demolition of vacant, dilapidated, and dangerous building at 155 Marketplace.
Commissioner Hamilton, I'm sending that to you for an intro.
Yes, good evening, Your Worship, members of council. Before you is a recommendation to proceed with a demolition of a vacant building at 155 Marketplace under the city's Dangerous and Vacant Buildings program. The continued work of the Dangerous and Vacant Buildings program is really aimed at targeting the rehabilitation of hazardous and vacant buildings throughout St. John that, if left unchecked, can create unsafe conditions in our community. The program also supports the city's growth efforts by generating voluntary compliance, promoting reinvestment, and increasing the amount of housing in the city. As council is aware, in 2023, several improvements were developed through the Community Enhancement Project, and we're moving forward with those to allow for higher rates of compliance and better outcomes on properties throughout the program. With that introduction, I'll now turn things over to Ben Purington, who's the manager that oversees this program, who will provide a brief presentation on the file before you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hamilton. Good evening, Your Worship and members of Common Council. Today I will be providing a brief overview of the dangerous and vacant building file before you, item 12.1 of the agenda. The building at 155 Marketplace is a 2-unit residential building located on the city's west side. The building is a hazard to the safety of the public by reason of being vacant or unoccupied, by reason of dilapidation. Within the building, a staircase at the right entrance has partially collapsed, limiting access to the upper floors. The building's floor and roof are sagging significantly, posing a potential risk of collapse in those areas. The building continues to experience water infiltration that is deteriorating the structure. In November 2022, a break-in occurred at the property and city staff were required to take action to have the building secured. Staff recommendation for the building located at 155 Marketplace is demolition. The following exterior photographs of the building's condition can be found on pages 95 to 102 of the council packet. So this is the front of the building. And the rear of the building. This is the staircase that was visible from the street, and the first floor that was visible from the street. And this is a photo of the building after it was secured. And that concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions on the file.
Okay, we have a few questions for you, Ben. Councillor Harris is up first.
Thank you, Your Worship. How long has this been on the list of dangerous and vacant buildings for?
Through Your Worship to the Council, it's been on the list since 2017.
2017, okay. Because I know I've been over to that building a number of times, but this just reiterates the need. I mean, the team is obviously already strapped. They were preparing to reside. There was obviously plans in place to try to salvage some of this. I talked to the neighbor, Janice, I'm trying to remember her name. Janice, if you're watching, I'm sorry. But I talked to the neighbor and she mentioned a number of years ago, something fell off the building and nearly hit somebody who was on the sidewalk. I guess my question with all of that is, we have some things that we're working on right now for advocacy. We're trying to get a vacant properties tax to put pressure on this stuff. But how do we ensure that this type of project, because obviously someone is trying to rehab it, how do we build in some capacity and support, or what was missed here from our perspective as the city for the team or the group or the individual that did buy it and was trying to work on it? Because It seemed like that was only a year ago that somebody started to swing a hammer at it again.
Through your worship to the counselor, the building was in poor condition at the time that repairs began at the property. There was a notice to comply issued back in 2021, actually, at the property. And the owner purchased it around when the notice to comply was issued. Aware of the risks associated with moving forward on these type of repairs. There was a chance that we would end up in this scenario today. Unfortunately, they weren't able to make the project that they envisioned a reality, and we ended up getting to the stage that we are today.
And so they won't be on the hook for the costs of the demolition.
The cost of the demolition will be billed to the property owner,
Be billed to the property owner.
and added to the property tax bill if not paid.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Counselor Ogden?
The family that lives next door to that, I have visited a number of times, and they have put so much money into their property, and outside and inside. They're just going to be delighted about this. Thank you.
Counselor Radwan?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Mr. Purinton, I just wanted to say, so the building that we know of sat vacant, I think, for 6 years, right? And then it said in your staff report that you had gotten word of a break-in in November. So it's been on the dilapidated list that entire time, right?
It's been on since 2017, correct?
Okay. I was just trying to get an idea. Do we know how many other buildings that you guys have on your list that have been like sitting there for that long?
Through your worship to the counselor, we are preparing a fact sheet to provide to counselors and to the mayor with different statistics, and that will be a statistic that will provide the number of years that and how many buildings we have for X amount of years on the list.
It's great. I'm just trying to get an idea of like what you guys have on your plate. So that's wonderful. Thank you.
Counselor Hickey?
Thanks, Worship. Ben, glad to see this one get addressed finally. Since it's been on the list, it's been sold 4 times. Once 17, 18, and then twice in 2022. Like someone made $6,000 off this thing while it was on the list. So like how does that happen? Like how does so much action on a building and yet so much inaction on a building happen without us being able to get them off the list, either by demolition or by repair?
Through your worship to the counselor, so the building was actually purchased at tax sale by the province in 2018.
Oh, okay.
And then transferred to DTI, I think a few months later. So those are 2 of the sales.
Yeah.
And then later DTI disposed of it in 2021. That owner, I don't think was fully aware of the state of the building, and then instantly, kind of within a month, I think, had transferred it to another owner, which is the owner that we're dealing with today.
Is there any indication, and sorry, this is not, this is a question resulting from that answer, so I'm putting you on the spot, but is there any indication as to how many on our dilapidated list are owned by DTI?
Through your worship to the counselor, we can provide that as part of the fact sheet that we'll be providing to council and the mayor.
I think that'd be important because we talk a lot about how to find that off-ramp and how clunky the province's process is on this, and certainly it's part of our advocacy efforts, but how many buildings they are holding up would be really interesting to, because I know I've run into quite a few of them. I know there's a lot in the South End. I know there's quite a few others like that situation, Lower West as well. So we could have an idea of how many that is. I think it'd be powerful in our effort to get more buildings either torn down for the neighborhood or brought back and repaired for the neighborhood before they get to this point, because it's been in DTI's hands for 4 years, if not more, which I would say those are 4 pretty critical years for a building like that.
Thank you. It looks like that's it, Ben, for us, for questions. So, okay, Counselor. Thank you. I have the recommendation moved. And then Counselor Radwan seconded. Now, before we vote on it, I have to read a declaration here. Demolition of vacant, dilapidated, and dangerous building at 155 Marketplace. The information which has been provided in the council kit includes the report of the building inspector stating that the building located at 155 Marketplace, PID 00363259, is a hazard to the safety of the public by virtue of its being, amongst other things, dilapidated or structurally unsound. Is there present here or virtually an owner, including anyone holding any encumbrance upon this property, who wishes to present evidence to the contrary, i.e., that the building is structurally sound and not dilapidated? Hearing no one, then I will call the question. The motion is on the floor. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. City Clerk, next item.
Next item, Your Worship, is item 13.1 on your agenda. It's a Finance Committee submission entitled Letter to Minister of Local Government and Local Governance Reform.
Councillor Hickey? Councillor Sullivan, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Here's the motion. Common Council sent a letter to the Minister of Local Government and Local Governance Reform in support of the expert panel recommendations on equalization, as well as to request the elimination of restrictions on setting the non-residential and heavy industrial multiplier. With a seconder, I'll add a few comments.
Councillor Killen?
Thanks, Councillor Killen, Your Worship, and on behalf of your Finance Committee. This came out of a November 3rd meeting when we were talking actually about the budget, but what happened was we received our assessment information from Fredericton and then started to apply all the math that is involved in projecting revenue. And at the end of the day, I guess I should start with a bit of a thank you to the provincial government. We've been talking about municipal tax reform for a few years now. And while the conversation still continues, two of the asks that the City of St. John had, one was keep more money in St. John, less property tax from non-residential taxpayers going to Fredericton. And the second piece, or a second piece, was give us local control for some tax information, tax rates, tax classes, so that we could try to create more fairness in how much tax was being paid. So one of the things the province did was they did vacate tax room. They said, we will take less money in Fredericton from non-residential taxpayers, and then we will give municipalities this slider tool in order to keep more of that money in their municipality. So previous to this, there was a multiplier of 1.5, and that was the standard multiplier for the non-residential taxpayers. And the province gave municipalities the ability to move that slider from 1.4 to 1.7. I'm going to throw some more math at you. So when we received our assessment information from Fredericton, our residential assessments, as everybody knows in the great conversation in the city, went up by a little more than 12%, a whole lot for us in St. John. We're not used to that. But the non-residential assessments only increased by 3%, and we only have one tax rate. So we moved our tax rate down so that we still took 6 to 7% in extra revenue from the residential taxpayers. And we moved the slider to the maximum of 1.7. But in doing all of that, trying to treat our residents as fair as possible, while taking as much of that tax room that the province had given us as possible, because of that 3 and 12% difference, what happened was, even though we got more money from the non-residential and industrial landowners, combined, they still paid about $3 million less in taxes just overall this year. Now, the province didn't see the assessments. They didn't know the assessments when they made those rules. And had the 3 and the 12 been closer, we wouldn't have seen this discrepancy. But there is this huge discrepancy. And really, our ask from the provincial government is use the tools they gave us. And it is as simple as take the 1.4 and the 1.7 off the ends. Give us the slider and trust us that we will use it to be fair to our taxpayers in the city. And I know lots of people are working on our business side and industrial side of growth, so those assessment numbers do match more what our residential do. But if they don't, if we have an odd year like this, then it helps us so that if our residents are paying 7% more, then to be fair, maybe if we decide our industrial and business side should be paying 7% more, and really, maybe if our industrial side was paying 7% more, our residents wouldn't have had to pay 7% more. They might have been able to pay 6% more. And this really, it isn't meant as a criticism, it's really meant as an add-on. This is part of the conversation. They've given us these tools to talk about. So at the end of the day, the letter that Finance Committee is recommending is let's continue the conversation, and provincial government, you've given us these really good tools that we're still learning, but please take the goalposts off and trust us to do what's fair for our residents. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. We have Craig Levine here tonight who can answer any questions. Before we go forward, will say that item number is 13.1, and for anyone who's watching, in with that item was a report called the Report of the Expert Panel on Provincial Municipal Fiscal Arrangements in New Brunswick. It's only about 18 pages. It's very interesting. It's got a little bit of the history in it of why there's double taxation here with the province and the municipality. It's worth a read. I recommend it. So we'll start with the questions. Councillor Radwan, you're up first.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I don't have a question. First of all, I want to thank Chair Sullivan for bringing this up in Finance. And I think that CFO Fudge has done an incredible job with this letter and his report to show what kind of financial challenges that the city's been faced with for decades. We're often, compared to Moncton and Fredericton and asking to always be treated the same. And I don't even know that that's fair. I'll be honest, the reason why is because we're so much geographically larger, which creates the challenge of having to pay out for more infrastructure. We're also the home, of course, to the city with the most heavy industry, which creates some other challenges as well. This is why it's essential that we're getting our fair share. We also bring over a quarter of the GDP to the province, and I think that should count for consideration as well. CFO Fudge has touched on something I want to elaborate on, and he mentioned that with the changes that it'll spur growth for much needed residential units, and I totally agree. But I want to remind people what that also means is that it'll be more demand for business, because the more population we take in, the more demand there will be for services. So those businesses will also take in a lot of GST, which will go to the province. They'll also obviously be paying for more tax-based growth, which we will benefit from as well as the province. I think it's time that the province really realizes that we're not asking for something to just help benefit St. John. We're actually asking for something that's going to benefit the entire province. So over the last few decades, the province has made a lot of investments, and I think that their main focus has been on Moncton. It's time to do something different. This is where the potential for the province is to really expand its footprint. We have the port, we're expanding the port. We have a great airport getting ready to expand their services. We have a great entity at St. John Energy. We have an incredible development in our waterfront currently taking place. We have an incredible vibe that you can't get anywhere in the province, like in our uptown St. John. And we have some great campuses here that have a lot of land for expansion and more geography in this city than any other municipality in New Brunswick to be able to expand population growth. So the potential is in St. John. We have our finances in order, and I hope that the province is listening tonight and will take a look, because around this table here, with our seniors leadership and our CAO, we have top-notch staff that if they want to expand their wallet, the time to do it is now.
Thank you, Councillor Radwan. Love all those positive words. Councillor Killen.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do want to thank Chair of Finance, Councillor Sullivan, and the team from the expert panel and Finance Committee and everybody for this, to take the complexity of this issue and to explain it in like a minute and a half like you did is like phenomenal. This one's a hard one to explain to just the folks on the street about how much math has gone into making this slider. And I think we had, an interesting pilot year, right? Like we had a great understanding of this first step. And as with all new things, it's good to provide feedback. So I really am so glad this is going to the province, and I hope they take note about this. It really is about balance. This year, the taxpayers floated the city's budget in comparison with the industry. So we need to balance the scale here, and considering the impact industry does have on St. John, I think that's a fair ask. So I hope to continue this discussion from a growth perspective and a finance perspective. I think those two blend really well together, and we can make a really solid case for what we want to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ogden?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Councillor Sullivan, Mr. Levine, and Mr. Fudge for their wonderful work. I'd also like to mention that I think this started last council, and I'd like to congratulate last council. And I think it was Mr. Sullivan that brought it up, that the province should tell us what they can do for us. I know I was a hopeful MLA sitting there, and I heard all the guarantees and everything, and it brought attention. And I think it was the first time in 25 years that any council had ever brought that up. This 57-year-old tax structure, yes, it benefited a lot, but it didn't benefit St. John. And a lot of us get blamed for rundown neighborhoods and few schools and few university students and all that. But the money is generated in St. John. We could be the wealthiest city in Atlantic Canada by far with the amount of industry we have. Moncton, Fredericton don't have our industry, thus they don't have our tax potential, and neither does Halifax or St. John's, Newfoundland. So I think this is really important that the citizens of St. John pay attention to this, because this has been a 57-year-old drain on St. John, and now we have a provincial government willing to talk to us, our MLAs. We have a united city council and staff. So this is extremely important to the city, and I like the mayor's comments about there's an 18-page report, I think she said, that if you should read that, and everybody should read that, and then you'll understand our tax structure and sort of the chains we've been living under for 57 years. And this council's made it their number one priority, and that's really, really good news for St. John. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ogden. Councillor Sullivan, back to you to wrap us up.
Thanks, Your Worship. First of all, just a shout out to the Finance Committee, yourself, Councillor Radwin, Councillor Norton, and Councillor Hickey. This discussion popped out of the midst of the budget discussion, so this is how important the letter was, and we didn't want to mix the two, so we brought it forward to today. And I appreciate all the comments around the table. I mean, the nice thing is we have a provincial government that's talking about this and willing to talk about it, us with it. And the chair of growth mentioned it. It was a pilot year. It was the first year it was done, and this carries that conversation forward. So appreciate with unanimous support, hopefully, that this will carry that conversation. We wanted to make sure we sent the letter in January so that hopefully we can have that change by October. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, thanks, team. Okay, so I've got a motion. It's on the floor. Before I call the question, just a reminder to everyone that your tax rate like 2 years ago was 1.78. You're now at 1.62. Just important to remember that. It's pretty impressive, I think. Okay, so on the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next item, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next on the agenda is under General Correspondence, item 15.1. And this is a letter from M. Cheney with a request to present regarding universal basic income. Staff recommendation is to receive for information.
Okay, so I'll take a motion from the Deputy and Councillor Harris on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next is item 15.2, a letter from St. John Board of Police Commissioners with respect to election of its 2023 officers. Recommendation is to receive for information.
Motion to receive for information, Councillor Harris and the Deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
And now we have our items from Committee of the Whole. The first one is 17.1. Its subject is Rehabitat Inc. Boar's Head Road Development Option Extension, and the proposed resolution is that the city enter into an amended and restated option agreement in the form as presented to Committee of the Whole at its meeting of January 23rd, 2023, with Rehabitat Inc. to extend the term of the original option agreement to March 31st, 2023, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the amended and restated option agreement and any other documents ancillary thereto are necessary to complete the transaction.
Deputy and Councillor Radwan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
And next is a proposed resolution from Committee of the Whole with respect to development proposal from John Howard Society on Troop Street. And the resolution would be that the city grant an option agreement in the form as generally presented to Committee of the Whole at its meeting of January 23rd, 2023, to the John Howard Society of New Brunswick, Fundy Region, Inc., over city-owned lands on Troop Street identified as pits 55055-230 and 00424238, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the option agreement and any other documents ancillary thereto are necessary to effect the transaction.
Okay, I'll take a motion on that. The deputy and Councillor Harris on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
And next is information technology purchase, and the resolution is that the city enter into a software license agreement with Zoho Corporation in the form as generally presented to Committee of the Whole at its meeting held on January 23, 2023, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the said software license agreement and any documents ancillary thereto.
Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Harris on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
And the final item from Committee of the Whole is with respect to Rapid Housing Initiative due diligence. The proposed resolution is resolved that council allocate up to an additional $40,000 from the growth reserve to support the city's application for affordable housing to the CMHC Rapid Housing Initiative.
Councillor Killen and Councillor Hickey on the question. All in favor?
I got a question, Your Worship.
Oh, sorry. All right. Councillor Harris, over to you. Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to draw people's attention because it can seem like rapid fire, just high-level governance stuff that we're doing here, which it is, but I think it's really crucial to say this has never happened before. Not for 40 years has the city taken such an aggressive, we've just gone through 3 items where we're throwing everything we have at it from a city staff and from a legislative capacity that we have as a municipality to drive housing projects that are going to support those living on the margins and most in need, to overall support our housing ecosystem. So just kudos to the entire team. We've had announcements on affordable housing action grants. We're seeing the city take a leading role working actively with 3 different nonprofits here tonight. So it's and a number of others on the list. So anyway, thank you, and just hope people are catching that.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Councillor Ogden?
Yeah, I'd like to thank the entire team, but particularly I'd like to point out Councillors Killen, Harris, and Hickey for all the work they've done on this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Motion to adjourn? Yes, Councillor Hickey?
Perhaps through you to the clerk, did we approve a ticket request for a Big Brothers Big Sisters luncheon on the 26th?
Councillor, I can't say for certain. I've been away, but if you wanted to be extra cautious, you could add that item to the agenda and prove it.
Can you add it right now?
It can be
On the
added
fly?
if we suspend the rules of the procedural bylaw.
I neglected to think about it, Your Worship, until right now.
So it would require, Your Worship, a vote of 2/3 majority to add that item, to suspend the rules of the procedural bylaw.
Okay, we'll move to, okay, good. And I got a seconder over here, Councillor Harris. Does everybody know what we're talking about? Okay, good. All right. So I'll call the vote on to suspend. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, so we're good for suspending.
And now the councillor can ask to add this item to the agenda with the seconder.
So asked.
Councillor Sullivan is the seconder. Okay, and so I'll call the question. So this is for the Big Brothers Big Sisters event, and then this will go to the clerk's office for anyone who would like to purchase tickets, correct?
That's correct, Your Worship.
Okay, so on the
I do have the details here, Your Worship.
okay, why don't you just give us it in a nutshell, just so that the public is aware? If you have it in a nutshell?
Yeah, I've got it right. Give me.
Not yet.
What?
It's a Celebrate Mentoring Luncheon. It's Thursday, the 26th at noon at the Delta. Celebrating, offering the Leadership and Mentoring Award to Tanya Chapman, Community Spirit Mentoring Award to Matthew Martin, and the J.K. Irving Lifetime Distinction and Mentoring Award to Roxanne Fairweather. I will be the MC.
Oh, that's why it's on the agenda. Hickey, that sounds like a bit of a conflict to me. I have to back this up now.
take my vote back?
Exactly. All right, on the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. You got it, Hickey.
And your worship, just to clarify, was that the motion to approve the ticket purchase?
Approve the ticket purchase, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and we had a motion to adjourn, I believe, did we not? Yeah, and are we going to vote on that? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, staff.
You now have broken the record.
Have I?